Hello, everyone. Welcome to Feels Out Loud, brought to you by Becoming Together Therapy and Wellness. This is your host, Tara Martini, along with the oh-so-lovely Becky McNattin. We are so happy to have you listening as we live and share stories of mental health.
Tara, I learned something this week that has had me absolutely shocked and not surprised at the exact same time.
Okay, girl, tell me more.
And it shocked me and not surprised me so much that I wanted to devote an entire show to the topic.
Oh my gosh, what?
Yeah, Forbes magazine released information from a study that reported 66% of American employees are experiencing some sort of burnout in 2025. 66%.
Holy.
Yeah. And if we break that down into age groups, the data is even more staggering.
Okay.
81% of 18 to 24-year-olds are experiencing burnout, and 83% of 25 to 34-year-olds report the same thing.
Okay, that is actually insane.
For those 55 and older, the stats are still 49%.
Which is so much.
It's those people under the age of 35, though, that skew the entire thing to 66%. So it means that people are feeling these intense circumstances of stress and disconnection from the world around them. The study noted all sorts of reasons on pressures of time, lack of resources, having to take on more work with less. I think we're all hear these things frequently. Job duties being added to without extra pay or benefits. People who experience burnout are 63% more likely to take a sick day. I think that makes some sense.
I think, there's a correlation for sure.
And have significantly higher rates of illness and physical health issues. And these numbers have gone up every year for the past several years.
Okay, it's staggering. And you know what I'm most surprised by, to be honest, and wondering what your thought was as well, is the age groups are so young.
Right.
Like, I would expect it to be like 40 to 55, right?
People who are new into careers.
Right.
We are essentially, and this is our primary working years, we are a society of burnout. And it got me thinking, at what cost? Do we even know we are? Do we know that people are feeling this way? Or have we gotten so desensitized to the experience of stress and role fatigue that we don't even know we're burned out anymore?
That's a really good point of how many people would acknowledge that they are.
Right. And you know me, I have questions about everything. So I couldn't stop wondering, since I saw this data, about why things are this way, and made me want to take on the topic of burnout today.
I love it.
For you and I to talk about what it is, why we feel it, what happens to us when we do, and what we can offer to ourselves and each other if this is where we are. Because my gosh, it's everywhere. We're going to break down and process together what it really means to feel burned out, the path to get there even, and how we see where we are in the process, as well as ways to show ourselves love and compassion for what probably is a total lack of emotional balance.
Right. Oh, yes.
Yes. So do you notice burnout in the world around you, Miss Tara Martini?
Oh, yes, I do. And here's the thing that I find so interesting is that for me, for a long time, when I heard the word burnout, I only associated it with work, right?
Yep.
I'm so burned out from work. I've just been doing this whole thing and I'm tirelessly working at it. But then I started thinking about that, and obviously we're touching on it, that it's encompasses the whole person. It's that idea of your body and your heart and your mind just being so worn down.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Emotionally exhausted to the piece of, because the environments in which I was in the education system, I would see your stereotypical work burnout every day.
Yeah.
Every day.
Every day, that detachment, cynicism.
Yes.
Total fatigue.
Yep.
I love this discussion. Yes. Right now, we're going to take a short commercial break, but stay tuned for more discussion on what burnout is and assess areas of your life that are impacted right now. We're going to cover burnout to balance and everything in between. Thank you for listening to Feels Out Loud. We are going to be back in just a moment.
You got to find the people
Welcome back to Feels Out Loud, brought to you by Becoming Together Therapy and Wellness. I'm Tara Martini with Becky McNattin. Let's dive right back into the lived experience of burnout and what that looks like.
Okay, so Tara, if 66% of us are experiencing burnout, as we noted in that last segment, and really this goes to 80% for anyone younger than 35, over 80%.
That is almost everyone.
Yeah, that means a sizable amount of people we come into contact with are struggling right now. And we might not fully see it, but the story is real. If you are listening today and feeling the intensity of burnout, it isn't just you. It is everywhere. In your life, Tara, what has burnout felt like to you?
This might sound really random, but the biggest indicator that when I realized that burnout may be something that I could relate to was, for me, and we'll talk about this, I know, later. For me, one thing that I always could go back on that brought me joy: reading and caring for my plants. Those were two things I always had. Like, I knew no matter how stressed I was. But then I realized there was a day where I noticed, like, wow, I haven't picked up a book in almost a year. And me taking care of my plants, which I know many people say I have too many, went from producing joy to being a producer of stress.
That's such a good point, in that things that were my grounding sources, or things that I found meaning and purpose and enjoyment in, don't bring me that anymore.
Yep. So that is how
I love
that's
that.
what it feels like to me.
Yeah. I want to share a story of burnout from someone I know very well. And listeners, I'd like you, as you're hearing this, to think about parts of this person's lived experience that you might resonate with.
Okay.
So here's the story. I am fakeness walking. I smile every single day, desperately looking for the good around me, and simultaneously tell myself that it's stupid to be so empty. I work super hard, but if I let myself think too much about any of it, I realize it's all pretty pointless. Nonetheless, I grind. I push myself to a higher bar. I exceed expectations. I share about myself if asked. I get it all done. But in reality, I'm constantly stressed. I'm overworked. I'm tired in a way that is hard to explain. It isn't only my body that's fatigued. It's like a weight of negativity that I wear every day. Even thinking about it makes me exhausted. I avoid people and questions that get at anything more than the surface because I don't feel like I have anything that great to say. I've told myself to ignore it, to push through, that any of this must be because I just need to do more. I look forward to all of the moments I'm not in, and then don't enjoy any of them when they are actually happening. If you saw me, you wouldn't know. If you talked to me, you wouldn't know. But if you knew me, well, you'd feel hollow too. And there's the story. Tara, what would you say to this story? Powerful, right?
So powerful. It brings up so many feels. First, I think what a universal concept that I think so many people listening, myself included, really could put myself in, if not one part, more part, you know what I mean, to it. And what stood out to me the most was that piece of, but if you looked at me and talked to me, you would have no idea.
That was what stood out to me too. The way that we wear our burnout.
Yes.
Because I don't think I look around me and notice that 80%, even 2/3 of people are walking burned out.
Right.
Are living that experience of an aspect of their lives. I don't see it. And so that was so much of what I resonated with as well. And if you saw me, you wouldn't know. If you felt how I feel, you'd feel empty too. And what are we doing to compensate for that feeling internally, and how we're masking that
Right. It's
to the
that
world
classic
around us.
mask, right? We're wearing that mask. We've talked about whether that mask is anger,
Yeah.
whether that mask is, hey, a mask of grief, like, hey, I'm fine, but you don't know how I feel inside.
Mm-hmm.
That fits so perfectly as well with this burnout piece
Yeah.
of, if you looked, if you asked, if you talked to, you would have no idea. I think about our practice is so small, right?
Mm-hmm.
Think then, even though that, take that percentage and how many people, then it makes me think of like, but everybody seems great, right?
Well, and part of what this story makes me think about, burnout can change so subtly that we don't really see it in ourselves. The person who wrote this story definitely can see burnout in themselves. They have a recollection of that, but we don't necessarily wake up one day and feel completely different.
Very good point.
Where we can say, oh, I know exactly what's going on for me.
Right.
Maybe we start to notice the negative in everything. Maybe we stop smiling or laughing. Maybe we feel calloused. As you said, you all of a sudden noticed, but that was subtle over the course of time. You realize you hadn't picked up a book in a year. This person obviously feels burnout in themselves, but what if we don't? How can we tell? And have you had a time, I know I've had a time, but have you had a time, Tara, where you were experiencing burnout and didn't see it in you?
I think it is, and I've gone back to this example in the past, but it is that idea of, we are ingrained in us that you are a mom, you can work full time, you can be a wife, and you can do all these things. And I was teaching, and I was married, and I was a mom. And well, you have everything in a job that you have such a purpose, right? And is your purpose. But I noticed that little things carried over into each part of my life, where I'd get a little bit more sensitive about things, or a little less able to multitask in not just my teaching, right? But as me, as a mom or a wife, or, whatever it was. And so it's those little things, and then those things increased over time. But at first, I didn't think of it as burnout. I just thought, well, I'm a mom and I'm tired. Well, I'm a teacher who's been teaching 20 years with 140 kids every year. Well, of course I'm tired.
Yeah.
But I never saw it ever as burnout.
Okay. I think about for myself sometimes where people outside of me have had to notice how I've shifted or changed. It was so subtle for me that I didn't see it. And like you, I can think about, oh, I hadn't seen people who I enjoy in a really long time. I suddenly found myself withdrawing, which makes me think about an author, Corey Keyes, wrote a really cool book called Languishing. I love the book. If you're listening and are interested in any kind of self-explorative types of books, pick it up. Note several things we might see in ourselves. And I wanted to just highlight them and maybe discuss them briefly around, there's some topics that seems like you and I have already highlighted on. He notes, do you find yourself emotionally flattened, not excited about things? Has a sense of inevitability washed over you? Like life seems dictated by these external forces. And I think about that as we're sort of helpless to
we
our
don't have
experience.
control.
It's just going to be what it is anyway. Things like that. Do you find yourself procrastinating? Has a sense of unease come over you? Like you're missing something, but can't figure out what it is. That happens to me all the time.
I mean,
when I notice that I'm in that space of fatigue.
Yep.
Corey Keyes also says, do you feel disconnected? Have small setbacks made you feel defeated? As if a small setback is like something monumental.
Right.
And then maybe we write some absolutes about it too. Like, well, this is never going to happen because of the small setback.
Right. You just find like you have less coping skills almost.
Yeah. Are you unsure of yourself? And then he highlights also, have you started to struggle with seeing the differences between what you are doing well and what could be improved? Is it blending where kind of everything isn't so done so well? So what do you think about these criteria, Tara?
Oh my goodness. So many people can relate to it. I think one thing that popped into my head was as you're going through the checklist, which you acknowledged as well, like there's somewhere I'm like, yes,
Right.
yes,
Totally. Yeah. Right.
yes. And what is a fascinating thing to note is if we're looking at burnout in the workplace, it doesn't mean you dislike your job. And I think that's important to remember that
Yes. Well
I
said.
love my job. I love the people I work with, but I'm still saying yes to some of these
Yep.
things because it doesn't mean you don't enjoy it. It means there's some aspect where you're just experiencing that burnout
And that
piece.
burnout might not be a forever spot.
Correct.
It could be if there are components that we aren't nurturing or fostering around balance or connection. But burnout doesn't mean that you're forever there.
Right. It doesn't mean you're forever there. It doesn't mean that it's saying anything about your job. It also, when going through the checklist, I was thinking to myself, like, ooh, yes, I find myself procrastinating, let's say at work. But oh, yeah, I do feel disconnected to my friends outside of work.
Mm-hmm.
That I could kind of like look at it
Yeah.
and see pieces where it's that overarching,
Yeah.
concept of burnout, but also acknowledging like, yes, these are temporary feels.
Mm-hmm. Well, and it makes me think about repeat exposure to things that bring us powerlessness, helplessness, hopelessness. Workplace and systems tend to do that. So I can see why we often talk about burnout from that
Yep.
that spot.
Yep.
And maybe as you read the list, you're thinking about somebody you know.
Right.
Maybe you're thinking about you. Tara and I are kind of thinking about ourselves, but I'm
Yep.
guessing that certainly on my mind, I'm thinking about other people I know.
Oh, yeah.
So to our listeners, I'm going to ask you 6 questions that I want you to answer yes or no to. And I'm going to list this in first person like you're asking yourself right now. Am I cynical more often than not? That's the first question. Number 2, have I lost interest in things or relationships I enjoy? Number 3, am I exhausted no matter what I do? Number 4, have I stopped caring? Have I stopped caring? Number 5, do I avoid making goals? And number 6, are bitterness and resentment frequent emotions for me? And I came up with these 6 questions because I do sometimes think that it's hard to see burnout in ourselves. It can be so subtle until we maybe look at what you said, which would be number 2, have I lost interest in things or relationships I enjoy? All of a sudden you're not reading and your plants feel like a stressor.
Sure. Yeah. Yep.
That are you more cynical than you have been in the past? Have you lost interest in things? Are you exhausted no matter what? Have you stopped caring? Do you avoid making goals? And my favorite on this list are bitterness and resentment frequent emotions. People who feel burned out feel bitterness and resentment. So if the answer to any of these questions is yes, this might be you, listener. You might be experiencing burnout. But I think about it. You highlighted this just a minute ago, Tara. Can we experience burnout in one area of life and not another? Can that happen? So I've been thinking about in that 80% of people feeling workplace burnout, can we experience burnout in one area of life? Does burnout in one space of life become overall burnout if we don't respond?
That's a great
and
point.
How can we know whether the burnout is? So what would you say?
I think that's huge of what you just pointed out in that it can be one facet or one part of your life. And then if left unattended, almost, it can seep into others. And I think the key of all of this is just taking time, like we talked about too, even in the last episode, take time to pause and reflect.
Yeah.
So it is, am I seeing these when you're answering yes to any of them? Is it then going back and going, okay, am I saying yes? Is it workplace or home, or is it workplace or just with my friends? And kind of dissecting what piece of the puzzle it's happening in.
Yeah. Well, you bring up a really great point. Have you heard of the term role fatigue, Tara?
Oh, yeah, honey. Yep.
Okay.
I may have experienced it before.
Well, for listeners who may not know what role fatigue is, it's a newish term
Yep.
that refers to areas of our life that are causing tension or strain.
Mm-hmm.
So it really is a role in your life that is causing fatigue.
Mm-hmm.
And we all have different roles, lots of them. We think about role fatigue frequently as our work or professional roles, but you mentioned this. You're a mom.
Yep.
You're a daughter. You are a neighbor. We are dimensional beings. We are more than that. And so we have lots of roles, and fatigue in one area, I think, can really impact roles that we have in other parts of our lives.
Absolutely. And I think if you look at it like role fatigue because when I think of role fatigue, it's funny because I think the hats I wear outside of being a therapist, like you said, neighbor, mom. So think of role fatigue and what are all the hats that I wear throughout the day or the week?
Yep.
Those are the different roles I play.
So I want to do an activity with you and listeners today. I want you to, if you're driving in the car, don't pull out a piece of paper.
No.
You can do this in your mind, but if you are at home, pull out a piece of paper. I want you to draw a circle on this piece of paper. And if you're driving or you're sitting in your car and don't have a piece of paper, draw a circle in your mind and then divide that circle into 8 segments like a pizza. In each of these slices of your circle, of your pizza, I want you to write a role you have. And Tara, you just said it beautifully. Think about hats you wear through the day. Some examples could be friend, employee, supervisor, sister, son, maybe partner or brother, parent, coworker, volunteer, leader, coach, teammate, anything. All of these different spots of your life and the roles that you embody, even in the course of a day. And if you're struggling with writing something down and filling in 8 spots, think about just your last couple of days in activities that you did or people who you talked to and what is your relationship and connection to them.
I think it's so fascinating because because I'm doing this as well, because I have to be a good student, obviously. I made the pie and my first thought was, Becky, girl, there is no way I'm going to be able to do 8. And then I've been writing and I'm like, whoa, that is, I think we wear more hats than we realize.
Yes, we do. And so once you have your roles, you probably have more than 8. We could make this a more segments even. But for now, once you have your roles put in the segments, I want you to take a look at the circle. I want you to take it in for a minute. Look at how many roles you have. And you probably have double this. Whatever you've put into your circle, you probably have double that. But give yourself some grace for what is in these segments. And now I want you to think about a scale of energy you feel around that role. So let's picture a scale of energy, 1 to 5. 1 is no energy at all, total depletion. 5 is this amazing, fulfilling energy. And I want you to look at each of the spots, each segment in your circle. And I want you to put a number 1 to 5, 1 being total depletion, 5 being this amazing, fulfilling energy, on how that kind of energy corresponds to the role that you have in your life right now. And when you've done that, so it takes you maybe a couple of moments here.
Yeah.
I want you to look at the circle. Take a look at your circle. What kinds of numbers do you see? Do you have any 5s? Do you have all 1s? Do you have all 1s? Are you hovering in the middle for everything, where there aren't any roles that are feeling energizing to you fully? And how often do you think this shifts? If you did this activity, so look at this right now. If you did this activity a week ago, would it look different from today? Just pondering it, because that gets also at burnout shifts. Sometimes we have a day of burnout. So Tara, what did you notice about your circle?
Well, I found that I could just focus on this the rest of the episode and not say anything. And then I realized wait, I need to be engaged because this would be something too. I think if you're a listener and you're driving, how cool when you get home and have more time, create that visual.
Yeah.
Anytime you can have that visual, I think it's more powerful in
Yeah.
that what I noticed was I did not put any 5s because as much as I love and am thriving in some roles, there's still that tired aspect.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that tiredness, like you said before in the segment about, being exhausted, I think that prohibits me from putting a 5,
Sure.
in that.
Yep.
It was the easiest to put the areas where I felt like a 1. Because those, although you feel the most empty in those, that feeling
Yeah.
is felt the most, which
Yeah.
seest contradictory in nature, but it's not.
Well, it's on our mind a lot, as
Yes.
we've talked on the show about how
Yep.
we are consumed with negativity
Yep.
and the things that are actually depleting to us. We spend a lot of mental energy processing. In my circle,
Yeah,
I found that I actually put roles that almost always are highly energizing for me. I put dreamer as a role. It is a hat I
Of
wear.
course you did. You are such a dreamer girl.
I'm a dreamer and writer
Mhm.
are on my list. And it was poignant for me that I don't make space for them. And they're a role in my life. And when I make space for them, I find an energy, but I felt like I couldn't even rate them because I have segmented them so they don't get a lot of time.
Wow.
So you might be thinking, if you're doing this activity at
Yeah.
home, roles that actually do bring you energy, that
Mhm.
are filling for you, things that you find meaning and purpose in, you don't have space for. Maybe because of the spaces of burnout are taking up
Right.
literal time.
Well, and if you look at, and I know people can't see, but if you look at the difference between mine and Becky's, mine are your stereotypical hats that you'd wear, right? Friend, daughter, sister, mother, aunt, where I looked at it like that,
Mhm.
where when looking at Becky's, like you said that there's that piece of these are the things that energize me. I'm the writer, I'm the dreamer.
Mhm.
More things like you said that pull and you love
Mhm.
doing.
Mhm.
It's almost like, oh wow, like that's a whole other wheel for me.
It could be yes, that's why I
Right?
say for the roles that even we
Yep.
identify, we probably have even over double that.
Right.
If we think about one of the things on my list is business owner,
Mhm.
a home owner,
Mhm.
that are going to draw at energy levels. But
Mhm.
if we really take time to sit on all of the roles we have, it's so many.
It is so many, and you're blowing my mind right now because then I'm just thinking how much time I invest so much time in this type of wheel, the mother-daughter friend, that I neglect the dreamer, the reader, the
Mhm.
writer,
Yeah.
where I need to be able to create more balance so that when I look at my pie, I can see both of those,
Mhm.
right?
Right, because are there things that are in the circle of roles for you
Mhm.
that ever give you energy? Are they
Right.
always depleting things?
That's a valid point as well.
And in the spaces of our life, are we making time for the things that actually could give us 5s?
And
Are we doing that?
And I think you just answered the whole big question of why 80% of a certain population feel burnout or age group is, are we allowing that space for things that energize us?
Mhm.
Or are we simply giving that space up to things that take our energy?
That take our energy. And perhaps not noticing the cyclicality of burnout. We write a
Mhm.
permanency to it,
Mhm.
which makes me want to read. I love poems. I want to read a
Yes.
poem by Alicia Cook that I found a few months ago that I think speaks so beautifully to the concept of patterning in
Mhm.
burnout, and that when we are experiencing it, we feel like it's going to be forever.
Mm.
Um,
Mhm.
and so this is called Track 34 by Alicia Cook.
Okay.
She says, I am not desensitized. I am burned out. Overwhelmed again, calling coffee a meal again, too tired to focus, but too exhausted to sleep again, sitting down in the shower again. breaking out in hives again, snapping at you again, apologizing to you again, having weird dreams again, not believing in much again, crying on the trail or in my car or at commercials again, losing perspective again, feeling like the end of the world is at my doorstep again. You can shrug it off and say it's all in my head again. Even if that is true, I spend more time here in my head than I do anywhere else on the planet. Shouldn't my mind be my habitual space? All this dense fog in the air should have been lifted by now. Out in the distance, a guiding beacon glows. A deep orange takes the shape of hope. A lighthouse, maybe. A sunrise, perhaps.
Oh,
And that's the end of her poem. What does this poem make you think about, Tara?
so beautiful. And thank you for sharing that poem. That's amazing. It makes me think about the idea that we so often, like you said, using the word pattern, get stuck in that pattern and that mundane life that we've created. And it takes so much energy to step out of it, but so often we don't think to step out of it, right? And then also that the point where it's again and again and again, but then there's not the again, there's that hope.
Yeah.
That it is temporary.
Which
even though it doesn't feel like it when you're in it.
Right, which is likely a huge aspect of burnout, that realization of hopelessness.
Well, how can you, when she, like you said, sits down in the shower again, and then she thinks to herself, I'm sure I'll be here tomorrow.
Right.
There's no end.
Right. Well, you bring up in that poem, the bodily reference. There are so many of those through the poem that really resonated with me around what burnout feels like. And for the listeners at home, my guess is you've done some of these things too. The things like breaking out in hives, having weird dreams, crying. Even. That what does our body tell us about our experiences of burnout that we either listen to or maybe don't listen
or
to?
Like she says, you shrug it off.
You shrug it off. You choose to ignore, maybe discard, maybe avoid. And I got me thinking about how often should we dialogue with our bodies, or how often do we dialogue with our bodies on the message that they are sending to us. And have you dialogued with yourself recently, Tara?
No, but you know what I'm going to do tonight is do that. I've been dialoguing almost to myself as we're doing this.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
As in that, because I think for so many of us, we can relate to that poem. We could easily fill in the blank of the different things that poet experienced.
Yeah.
And so it is, have I done this recently? No, but I sure am going to, because now I'm realizing that in order to get rid of that pattern of the same thing and going again and again and again, I'm not going to be able to step out of it until I dialogue with my body.
Well, and so I'm a little corny. I did this recently, that I wore a pair of shoes to work that I'm pretty confident that if my feet could have talked to me, they hated me by the end of the day. And so much so that I almost wanted to take my shoes off and just walk out barefoot to the car. It was, why did I push myself so hard? But what a great symbol of shrugging it off. And I actually did dialogue with my feet on my way home in like, yeah, you are so mad at me. You are so mad at me. And it makes me think about it, as silly as it is, it was kind of giving a space for my body to tell me, why did you do that? Why did you do that in the name of fashion, of wearing those shoes?
Because it's fashion.
If 66% of us are experiencing burnout or more, depending on how old we are, I have a strong sense that our bodies are telling us something. And as you are sitting listening to the show today, take a little scan. Pay attention to your shoulders, even right in this very moment. And your neck. What message are they sending to you? Are they strained? Are they tense? I have a feeling that that part of what Alicia Cook in her poem is talking about is tuning in to what we aren't noticing about burnout until it gets to a spot that we notice it.
Right. That you can't help but notice. You have to notice.
And that maybe there are spaces of re-energizing or at least nurture that if we were listening, we might hear. And for the listeners, I'm curious about what you'd say to this, Tara. For listeners who are saying, yes, I am feeling burned out, what would you say and how they could respond if they're sitting there today? Like, yep, that's me. I'm burned out.
Yep. I think it is that if we can anytime, it's almost like one of the things I'll tell clients is to journal every night, just 1 or 2 sentences from a place of love. Like, what would love say to you every night? I think that piece, if you are sitting there and you feel that burnout, well, what would love say to you right now? That your body deserves rest, that your heart deserves rest. And then what does that look like?
Right. And hearing those messages or allowing yourself to even think about those messages rather than discarding or judging them, responding with a kindness to ourselves.
And acknowledging that it's similar to the piece of when you think of adult women who have given birth and you're looking at your body, not liking it, but that body gave you children. It's that piece of, I'm so exhausted, I'm experiencing burnout, but think of all of the things that your body and mind have been capable of achieving lately.
That's incredible. It's a beautiful reframe. Yes.
That we need to think of that. And then it isn't, like you said, please, and if you're listening, it's that notion of, but don't just shrug it off, right? Don't just shrug it off. Then what am I going to do to get more rest or more peace? That action step. And so I think that part is so, so important. And it's, finding that balance.
Well, and sometimes I think we, in terms of seeking balance, often we say, okay, well, if my life isn't balanced, I need less. And I'm going to challenge us and our listeners to say that sometimes actually it's adding in joy, laughter, in my words, dreaming. What are the things that you are not allowing to be on because you're saying, I need less in my life, on my plate, in my circle, in my pie, on my rolls, that then when we look at it from a reductionist space, we're actually removing our capacity to be re-energized. So what could we say to ourselves in terms of balance that we might add in? And perhaps initially it will feel like, you mentioned this several minutes ago, it might feel like another thing, and it will have the tendency, if it's the thing that brings us purpose and joy or rest, it will feel like we're adding in, but we aren't actually.
I love that. Add in. And it is, you, just like you said, adding in can also lighten, which people don't think of because it sounds like an oxymoron. If you add this, it will lighten things. It will lighten you and how you feel.
It maybe feels like it's another stressor on a thing to put into our lives. But if, as you're looking at the circle, if every role that you put down is a thing that is drawing from you, what is the opportunity you have on getting recharged? We're going to be walking burnout.
Right. Well, apparently most people are right now, according to the statistics.
Yes.
Yeah.
And, it has me thinking about how do we support, you and I don't have any of the amazing answers, but how do we support each other, knowing that pretty much everywhere you look, at any given moment in time, there's a significant number of people who are experiencing burnout.
And also, we don't even know it because you can't tell by the way you look, the way that someone looks.
Yes.
Like you said. And it's also thinking about, because to me, what was so startling is that they're experiencing it at such a young age of just starting in a career. My goodness, what can we do for that demographic to ensure that burnout is not going to keep happening over and over in their careers?
Absolutely. so much to think about here. A lot to think about here.
Yeah.
It's been a great discussion. We're going to head to a commercial break, but when we come back, we will talk through listener questions about all things burnout. Feels Out Loud will process your questions and thoughts in just a moment.
From nobody else, all you got to do now. Nothing to lose. In a world full of strangers, you don't know to trust. All you see is danger, trying to find what you lost.
We are back again with Feels Out Loud, and this part of the show is where we talk through questions from our beautiful listeners. If you have a question related to mental wellness, sharing feelings, or topics for each week that you would like us to process through, please visit our website at becomingtogethermn.com and find the Feels Out Loud page to submit a question directly. Or you can email us at contact@becomingtogethermn.com. We truly want to hear from you and what you are wondering about.
And I want to just give some gratitude to people who shared their experiences with burnout in coming up with a question or a listener response today. There were a lot of people who are feeling burned out by their work, which isn't an unusual thing because we
common.
Clearly found that from the data. So this listener says, I feel so burned out about my job, but does that mean I have to leave my position? I don't know if I can do that. And I chose this question in part because there was so much burnout around workplace. And I do think that sometimes the spot of despair created from burnout leads us to desperate thinking. And we sometimes, in that hopelessness, we write, well, the only thing that will do that is some sort of monumental thing.
Right, which
Change.
is not a good thing.
That's very scary.
Yep.
And that also rationalizes, well, you better just shrug it off then and keep doing it because you can't make any change.
Right.
And so to this listener, thank you for acknowledging this. And also I would say, no, you do not have to leave your job.
You do not.
That burnout is a desperate space. And often, a few weeks ago, we did a show on transition, that when we feel burned out, we're disconnected, we're detached. We talked about that in the show today. But when we are in spots of transition, if we can pause, we learned that from that show, that's a good thing. I tend to think in my life that if I can avoid making a decision from a desperate spot, that's good.
Yes.
So sometimes we can't avoid doing that. But if we can think about how to perhaps pause and not make a choice about leaving a job that we feel burned out in, that might be the attuned decision. I would suggest to this listener that maybe looking at areas of your life that bring you energy that aren't part of your life right now. And how can you seek to nurture those aspects of your life? If work is burned out, maybe don't think about more things related to work.
Right.
What needs to be different there? What needs to change? Think about what else. Ask yourself, totally different area of life. I'm going to move over here and I'm going to think about how to nurture and amplify that part.
And it may even be acknowledging that it isn't work that is creating the burnout. The burnout could be coming from a different source.
That's a very good point.
But creeping over to that puzzle piece that is so important to recognize. And it brings us back to this pizza pie that you created, in that when you say, think back to something that energizes you, look at your pizza and what pieces are missing that did formerly energize you.
Yeah. Are there roles that, if you generated a bigger list of roles, are there roles you miss?
Right.
Are there roles that you have previously had that brought you something that isn't present right now in your life? And rather than make a decision from burnout, think about how to fill yourself differently with energy, and then tell yourself, I'll make a decision.
Right.
Then maybe I'll think about, where is life headed for me? Then I'll think about professional plans and trajectory. But don't write a big scenario that maybe is going to leave you feeling even more depleted.
Right.
Because when we think about engaging in transition, we're also wrapping ourselves up in new roles. And
that involves
new stressors.
So many other facets of your life if you make that decision.
Yeah.
So it's always just important to pause and take that time to reflect.
And we're at the end of our show already for today.
Holy
oh my
moly.
gosh, wow. Thank you for listening this morning, everyone. Join us next week as we talk about healing the nervous system with a chiropractor who is going to be a guest on the show. And in the week ahead, be kind to yourself. Remember that connection fosters wellness. And everyone, your voice is one that the world around you needs to hear. Share yourselves, friends.
I wanna be